Hello, gorgeous. Let's talk about something that I feel most women don't even realize that they're doing, and that is performing. And I don't mean just in life, but I mean in sex, in pleasure, in how we move, in how we dress, in how we touch ourselves. We've been conditioned to look sexy instead of feel sexy. And this is what disconnects us from the real magic, our body, our truth, our sensual power. So if you've ever felt or ever caught yourself wondering, am I doing this right? Am I being sexy enough here? This video is for you. Today I wanted to dive into something that is close to my heart, and I know you're going to feel this too. And I wanted to speak on this difference between performing your sex, performing your sexuality, and actually embodying it. Because this is where the real power is as a woman, your embodied sexuality. But first, my name is Jessica Angeleri. If you're new here, welcome. And if you have been here for a while, I'm so deeply grateful for you that you are back here joining me again. I really do hope that you find something here that inspires you, enlivens your feminine spirit. My whole intention and my whole work is around supporting women just like you in awakening their sexuality and their sensuality as sacred, their beauty, their feminine codes, and we do that through pleasure. I know that when we start to shift our views around sexuality and sensuality, we start to take on a whole new way of moving and being in the world. And that includes in the way that you move into your sex life as well. So we are here changing the way that we feel in our feminine bodies. So I'm so happy that you are here helping me rise in this new feminine way. Remember to sign up for my free program, Erotic Feminine Embodiment, where you will receive beautiful practices for 7 days. Every day you receive a new practice that starts you on this journey of connecting with your feminine, with your sensuality, with your pleasure. Sometimes it can be a little bit difficult for our mind to actually understand or integrate what is spoken here in these videos. So when you dive into the embodiment piece and you start to actually infuse the feminine into your body through practices, then this information or these transmissions start to land in your body. And this is where you start to see the shift. So this is why I love offering pleasure practices. So make sure you join up for that. And today we're diving into this really juicy topic around performative sex and embodied sex and looking at the differences of that. Because we live in a world that constantly tells us how to be sexy, how to please, how to fit into someone else's idea of what it means to be a sexy woman, a sensual woman. That's just the world that we live in. So I really feel like it's so important to bring a whole new, fresh perspective, an embodied perspective on these talks. What I have realized when working with women and from my own explorations of my own sexuality is that the real power, your sensuality, your magnetism comes from within. Comes from within you. It isn't about following these 5 sex tips and then stepping into this sexy version of what's been shown to us. It's about feeling. So today we're going to explore how to shift from this external performative sexuality into a more deeper, more authentic embodied sexuality. That's all about your own pleasure and power. So let's start with what is performative sexuality? What is that? This is a curated filtered, exaggerated version of what sexuality should look like. You know, you probably have this image in your head where it's like, okay, this woman, she has pouty lips and she knows how to arch her back, and, you know, she wears this beautiful lingerie. But when I think of that, and when you think of this, I want you to think of this, maybe this isn't what real embodied sexuality is. Maybe this is actually a choreography, a script that we've all been handed. I mean, we see this in movies, we see this in Sex and the City, as much as I love Sex and the City. But, you know, even in like 50 Shades of Grey, for example, you know, these movies that have portrayed this idea of what sex is, it's performative. And so performative sexuality is when you're doing things because you think that you should. And I feel like we're not doing this consciously either. And we're doing this because you want someone else maybe to notice you, maybe to approve of you, maybe you want to be desired. Because somewhere you may have learned that your worth lives in how desirable you are to others, especially to men. And it's not your fault. We're just bringing awareness to this, right? And this is why when you come into Feminine Remembrance, my beautiful group temple, we unleash your inner sex goddess in a way that is so deeply connected to your inner, your inner goddess, your worth. You tap into your love, and then you have sex from that space. But we look at the shame or the stories that we are still holding on to, and we liberate ourselves from that, because we've been conditioned to view our sexuality through this masculine, goal-driven lens. Not all the time, but I feel like this is what's really sold to us. To impress, to seduce, to give a performance, right? Rather than to actually immerse yourself in the experience. So I feel like we've been hardwired to always look at sex with an outcome. We've been hardwired to think about sex like, get me stimulated or make me feel a certain way and then get me there fast. It's a deeply ingrained, masculinized way of seeing sex. Not that it's bad, not that I always say this, the masculine is not bad, but sex is really such a beautiful, divine, sacred experience that when we're focusing on the outcome and when we're going into it from this space of like doing and I need to achieve something, we miss the sacredness of it. We miss the beautiful, sensual piece of it. Like, I've even had to teach my man about this for him to even rewire his own body and his own mind to come into this experience so differently, because for men, they do want to please. Instead, we drop into this space of surrender. Whatever happens, happens. Yes, I want to feel good and be pleased in the process, but it's not to get to a certain outcome, right? So there's a certain surrender, I believe, that we have to master. Instead of sex just being this thing that we do or this way that we need to appear. And then you might, when you go into this space like that, you might then catch yourself thinking, am I sexy enough? Am I doing this right? Is he enjoying this? What does my stomach look like from this angle? And if it doesn't look good, then I mustn't be sexy or I must not be seductive enough. or attractive enough, right? And these ideas that we have about ourselves, or these thoughts, really stems from how we actually live our life. So that inner monitoring, that critique that you have, that constant evaluation of your performance, that's what disconnects you from your body, because that's what keeps you in your head. And we can't fully allow ourselves to experience this epic pleasure that I love to immerse in with women. We can't fully open and let go if we're actually stuck in our heads. Even in my the pleasure practices, I lovingly remind women, yes, you're doing this right. You're not here to get it right. You're here to feel, to soften, to be with you, to trust yourself. We need to practice this. We need spaces where we can practice this. The moment that you're in performance mode, when you're in your head, it's no longer about pleasure, because pleasure can only be felt in presence in your body. So we need these little reminders, because we're hardwired to want to do things right, to do it well. There's nothing wrong with that. But we are hardwired to do our best. And then that ripples into your sex. It's hard to switch out of that if we haven't practiced it. The truth is, when you're performing, it stops being about you. It's about seeking someone else's validation, whether we realize this or not. Trying to fit into this mold of what's acceptable or attractive to others. And I really want you to think about that. Every time that you look to those 5 steps to have better sex, think about, can I think of this in the way where it's not about doing it better? Instead, it's about, how can I nourish my body? And how can I deepen my connection with my sensuality? To practice getting out of this performance mode, which is what I'm used to, which is what I've been trained to do. Because every time you do that, every time we do go into that space of performative sexuality, it leaves us disconnected from the body, and then we start to second guess ourselves, right? And then it might make you feel like sex is another task that you have to get through, another thing that you have to do, right? Because you have to do it. Or it's, I have to release all this energy. And so this sex then becomes surface level. Pleasure then becomes surface level. But that's not where the real magic is, sister. Remember, I always say this from a place of love. The real power lies in you feeling your energy, in stepping into this space of embodied pleasure that feels calm and peaceful and loving, because your sex is not performative. It's not about technique. It's not a 5-step formula to the perfect orgasm. When you start to really nourish your body and connect with your body, and you start to see sex as sacred, and when you start to actually intentionally connect with your life force, this pure, raw, divine energy within you, this dance of energy in your body, and you activate that through your pleasure, something shifts. You actually have better orgasms because of it. So what this work is asking us, or what we're being asked to return to, is to come back into this place of remembrance within ourselves, to strip away from performance and melt back into the body, to reclaim your original essence of what it means to be sensual and erotic and fully alive. And all of this ripples into my next point about the power of embodied sexuality, which asks you to slow down and feel your sensuality, to connect with this juice inside of you. This is the aspect that I absolutely love working with, and that's through pleasure, because this is where the real shift happens. This is where your orgasms go from just clitoral, like genital orgasms, to whole body orgasms that lasts. As I said, we are wired to attach our sensuality to sex. It's not the same thing. Your sensuality is the avenue to your sexuality, to knowing yourself on a deeper level, to true embodied sexuality, which allows you to fully come into these deeper aspects of your being, into loving yourself so much deeper. So embodied sexuality, when you're in this space of deep nourishment and connection and surrender, well, then you stop needing to perform, right? You stop feeling like you need to achieve something. You stop doing sex. You stop rushing to an outcome, because sensuality asks you to come out of that space of rushing. Instead, it's about coming into this unapologetic connection, connectiveness to your body, to your breath, to your desires. It's juicy. It's about really immersing yourself in the experience through your senses, which is what then brings pleasure. It opens you to pleasure. Pleasure is the portal to your sexuality. When you're in your embodied sexuality, then it's no longer about what anyone else thinks. Instead, it becomes about this union. It becomes about him, it becomes about you, but it's not just about him anymore. It's not just about you. Because you know how to be present with yourself. When you know how to be present with yourself, you know how to be present with your lover. And you can even experience embodied sexuality without a lover, just by self-pleasure. It's about what feels good for you. And then in that way, you also no longer need to seek external validation in the way that you move or how sexy you are, because you just own your radiance. You own your sensuality from the inside out. You own your desires, your needs, and those messages can only be heard beneath all the shoulds and the ideas that have been handed to you, these shoulds. You should be more like this. You should be more sexy like this. Sometimes it's very indirect. It's very subtle, these messages that come to us. So this is about you making space for your pleasure, so you can practice hearing, what do I actually desire? What do I love right now? It's getting to know your body on a deeper level. So then you really develop that relationship with your sensations, and you build that trust with your body. When you build that trust, you let go. And that's where the magic is. That's how you feel more pleasure, without guilt, without hesitation. And remember, when I say pleasure, I don't mean this roller coaster kind of pleasure, maybe that we're used to associating it with. There are different kinds of pleasure, but in my world, I'm speaking about this peaceful Zen kind of pleasure. A form of pleasure where you feel calm, where you feel safe, where you feel grounded enough to receive the beauty of your body, of the present moment, that is where embodied sensuality is birthed, and it's effortless. And the more that you practice it, because that's what we need as women, okay? We do require practice and space to be held, to practice this kind of pleasure as often as we can. That's where I come in. That's where I love to help you. And the more that you practice it, the more that it becomes second nature, especially for us high achieving women, successful women, empowered women, who you're usually in this hustle mode, right? For much of the day. So then when you practice this, it's much easier then to step into a sexuality that then feels embodied. So you know how to shift and transition from being in the mind constantly in the day, because you might be working on your business, you're a highly successful woman, but then your sex doesn't require you to be in that masculine mode. Instead, we want to just melt in. So when you practice this, you know how to melt in, you know how to get embodied. And then you know that you don't have to try and be sexy, because when you're in your body, when you're truly feeling and embracing your own energy, you become this seductive, sensually alive woman. You become your own source of erotic energy that you just turn yourself on. And that is where the real power is. It's not about doing, it's about being. Okay? So the real differences between performative sexuality and embodied sexuality is performative sexuality is about pleasing others. Embodied sexuality is pleasuring yourself. Because when you're performing, you're doing it unconsciously for someone else's approval, but when you're embodied, you're doing it for you. And you prioritize your pleasure, your joy, your sensations. Performative sexuality can be surface level, but embodied sexuality is deep, soul connected. Performing is about appearances, how sexy I can look. Embodied sexuality is about you've already claimed your radical beauty and your radiance, because you know how to just be fully present and alive in your body. Performative sexuality, it's derived from fear, can be derived from the feeling of I need worth, right? From that sense of like, I need to fulfill myself. Embodied sexuality just comes from love, from this essence of love. It's rooted in love, in self-acceptance, a deep trust that you are already enough just as you are. You don't need to change yourself because you're beautiful. You are this portal of beauty, of love, of pleasure. What a gift that is. So when you're in this performative sexuality, it can also feel a little bit draining. It drains your life force. It makes you feel maybe even exhausted after. But when you're embodied in your sexuality, it feels liberating, because you know how to source this life force for you and for your lover as well. So it actually becomes more activating. It becomes this pathway to creativity. So the invitation here, sister, is to start tuning into your body. You don't need to overthink it. The more you connect with your body and slow down, the more natural embodiment becomes. So start giving yourself some space in your days, daily, to practice pleasure. to come into this space of natural embodiment. Stop looking for outside, for external approval. You're already enough. You're already beautiful. You're already sensual. This is yours. This is your way of being. So practice validating yourself. Celebrate the way you feel in your body, the way you move, the way you show up, and let that be enough. Remember, your embodied sexuality is about your sensations. So indulge in your senses, practice connecting with your senses. That's how your pleasure becomes activated, and that's how you become more present. And then that's how you allow the sensual energy to awaken within you without any force. And then that, of course, asks you to slow down. So as you can see, they're all intertwined with one another. When you slow down, when you practice slowing down in your daily life, then when you make love, you create space as well to fully feel everything, to fully open. That's how you experience greater sex as well. So you allow your body to guide you, and that is how sensuality builds on your sex. Allow yourself to fully feel and practice the sensuality in your bones, in your soul, without any shame, without any fear. You deserve that. And of course, this is what feminine remembrance is all about, getting to know yourself in this way, to move from what you have been shown about sex to be, to fully embodying sex as yours. And we do that in a beautiful, immersive sisterhood temple. We do this through pleasure, through your body, through your feminine, through your sensuality, to truly unleash your inner goddess. So jump in for that. Nothing turns me more on than seeing women coming fully alive and radiant and absolutely turned on in their bodies in a way that feels so healing and so natural. And of course, remember, there are pleasure practices in my free program. And they are designed to help you start this journey of sensual awakening. If you take anything at all from this today, remember this: you are already magnetic. And when you step into your embodied sexuality, you stop seeking approval from the outside and you really start to honor and feel your own power as a woman. You know how sacred and divine and necessary your pleasure is for your body, for your sex. That's where everything shifts, from that space. Thank you so much for being here with me today. And if this resonated with you, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. What will you do today, sister? Will you start acknowledging the love that you are? Are you going to start loving your body? Are you going to start slowing down? Are you going to start connecting with your senses? What will you do today to feel more embodied in your sexuality? I'll leave you there. Thank you so much, gorgeous. Make sure to share, like, subscribe. I will see you again very soon in the next episode. For now, my name is Jessica Angeleri, and don't you forget how beautiful, how radiant, how sexual you are. Bye, my love.